Sandra, you're too late. Go ahead. I'm gonna start charging every time I have to go back to this page. I give you guys so much time. Carly, are we leaving early? No, because Sandra just checked in. We're not leaving early anymore. Okay, I promise we leave early, okay? Around 9:29, is that good? With 59 seconds, is that okay? No, not today? All right, Carly, I'll do my best. All right, so let's go. Real estate taxation. Taxing entities. Who taxes on you? State government, county and local government, and tax districts. Now, federal government does not tax you on real estate. It can tax you on other things, but not on real estate. Real estate taxes are solely for the state. So there are no federal taxes on real property. That's what you need to remember. Now, when you see taxing districts, a lot of people are thinking, oh, districts is an area, right? No, taxing districts are taxing bodies or entities. So who can tax on you? Sorry. When we narrow down to the local taxes or the local municipality, right? The taxes are for instance, school district, so it's the Board of Education, fire protection, community colleges, parks, and so on. These are all taxing districts. We call them districts. Okay. A property tax bill might include tax levies from such districts as the following. Again, these are districts. That's how they consider it. Bridge and highway, nursing home, stormwater management, township, fire district, school district, retirement funds, health services, historical museums, sanatoriums, forest preserve, land management, public library district, park district, and community college district. So they consider all of these districts or entities or taxing bodies. Means the same. Districts, entities, or taxing bodies means the same. You get taxed for all this stuff. Some people even dare to say, well, I have no kids. Why do I pay for school? Right? I don't intend to go to a nursing home. Why do I pay for nursing homes? You understand? So it's a combined effort of the communities, not just for, oh, you pick and choose. But if you want to pick and choose, a couple of years ago, well, I know, several years ago, the taxes were levied separately. Now we have a bundle. So think about cable, for instance. You have the triple play, right? Have you ever tried to unbundle? Have you ever tried to have the triple play, which is the cable TV, the internet, and your phone, and you tell them, hey, I don't use a home phone, because nobody does, right? Can you remove the home phone? I don't want it. I just want the cable and the internet. Right? Have you ever tried that? Have you seen the difference in your bill? Like $5 because you took the phone out. Like $5 difference. And you're thinking you made a big deal because the phone by itself is $20. But if you remove it off the bundle, you just saved $5. In some of them, it's even more expensive. Okay. Anthony says, I like the fire district tax. I don't, because it pays for people like you. Anyway. So bundling the bill, it's a lot cheaper for everybody, easier to manage. I know that's your salary, I know. Huh? Carly, drinks at McDonald's are more expensive and it's not uncommon. You really need for us to leave early, right? I get it. Like, what would you guys think about this though, when you read this? right? The whole thing. Drinks at somebody needs their meds. I know. That's what it is. Drinks at meds. Anyway, all right. Put Carly on. I always put everybody on the spot. Come on, you know how it is. All right. In addition to generally established tax districts, the local government has the authority to establish a special tax district. I'm sorry. To pay for the cost. The Kia, me too. To pay for the cost of specific improvement or service that benefits the area. For instance, a special tax district might be created to fund an extension of municipal water service to a newly incorporated area. Unlike a permanent tax district, such as school, a special tax district is temporary, ceasing to exist once the costs of the project have been paid for. So we're going to go over that a little bit more in a little bit. Right now, we have ad valorem tax. Ad valorem is Latin for according to value, also known as our general tax. Anybody speaks Latin? Anybody? Okay, Calvin, you do. And Estrada, you do. Ruth, are you raising your hand? You do. You speak Latin as well? I didn't say Spanish. I didn't say Portuguese or Italian. I said Latin. All right. So I just want to make sure that I'm saying this right. Ad valorem means according to value. Because if nobody speaks Latin, it will be easy for me to say, believe me, it is what it is, right? But if somebody speaks Latin, then I got to be careful. Right? Well, iCarly, just so you know, besides drinking meds, valor is also Portuguese, okay? It's not just Spanish. Value in Spanish, okay? You can put the same word in Portuguese. Same. Anyway, we have something called tax-based totaling. We have a homestead exemption. It's the meds, I know. It's not future value. It's according to value. We should do 12 rounds in the ring, Carly and I. I would lose in 2 seconds. I'm about to go for a surgery. You think I want to step into a ring? Hell no. Lose right away. That is true. You can go into other languages, not just Latin, because they're Latin-based languages anyway. All right, so let's go. Tax base. The tax-based totaling, or also called assessment roll, or total assessed property. Okay, so let me zoom in. Tax-based totaling means assessment roll or total assessed property in the municipality. Okay, so tax-based totaling is assessment roll. I'll explain all this in a second. Assessment roll or total assessed property. Okay, so right there. So general property taxes are levied. General property taxes are levied on an ad valorem basis, meaning they are based on value or assessed value of the property. Ad valorem means according to value. This case is the assessed value. Assessed value by whom? By the municipality. So it says right here, assessed value is determined by state law, but usually by a county or township assessor or appraiser. So the assessed value is not market value. Let me put this up here. Not market value. Assessed value is not the market value. It's not what you sell the property for. It's whatever the county assessor or township assessor or appraiser determine your property to be worth for tax purposes. This chapter is about real estate taxation. You're taxed based on the number that they gave your property. Okay, a number, a value they gave your property. So in some areas, some areas here in New Jersey, as for instance, you're taxed as low as 16.5% of market value. In other areas of New Jersey, you're taxed at 154%. So between 16.5% all the way up to 154% of market value. So your assessed value is not necessarily what you sell for. Some areas, they tax you based on the transfer value, which usually is market value. So every municipality has the right to calculate the taxes their own way based on whatever the state allows them. Okay, so if you're in an area that assesses at the transfer, then the transfer value is the new assessed value and you get taxed based on that. Okay, so the actual tax right here, though based on assessed value, may be derived as legislative percentage of assessed value. Land and improvements may be assessed separately. Ad valorem taxes are paid annually. All right, so Antar is asking me, I'm curious, why not market value? Okay. It's a very good question. In New Jersey, for instance, they try to reach market value, but it's almost impossible. Imagine trying to tax the whole state based on market value. Let's look at what happened to values over the past 10 years. So 2010, 2020. Do you think it's fair, Antar? Do you think it's fair that your property 10 years ago was $300,000, now it's worth $600,000, and God knows, maybe tomorrow it's going to be worth $400,000. Do you think it's fair that your taxes will go up and down according to that? Right? It becomes very difficult for you to assess. Right? It becomes very difficult for you to assess at every transfer. In some areas of New Jersey, as an example, and this is the same across the country, some areas of New Jersey properties have been stable. In some markets, they did this. Some markets of New Jersey, they did this. Right? And let's go further back then. Let's go to 2000. Property values. Right? Those are the property values since 2000. Imagine having to assess this way. It's difficult. This is a short period of time, and changing your taxes every time, it's tough. Let me tax you right now at these peaks. You guys understand this? Right? It's very difficult to do in certain areas of the country and certain townships within a particular state. Some don't change value. Some the value just stays or increases at a steady pace. But some are very difficult. All right, Joanna's asking, is there any way to reduce property taxes or just accept the tax increases every year? We're going to talk about that. It's called a tax appeal. Okay? Good luck with that. But yes, you can appeal or cry about it. Let's go to tax base real quick. What is a tax base? So the tax base of an area, tax roll, as I said, is the total of all real property within the area's boundaries, excluding partially or totally exempt properties. So the tax base is all the assessed values minus exemptions. What are the exemptions? Well, municipal property, for instance. Municipal property is not taxed. You're not going to tax City Hall, right? You're not going to tax the public library. But anything that's privately owned is taxed, right? Now, some taxed properties have reductions, and that goes state by state. So when we get to the state portion, we'll talk about it. But some have tax reductions, like for veterans, for people with disabilities, for people who are 65 years of age or older. there are some exemptions or deductions from the taxes, the property taxes, right? Religious purposes, so churches, for instance, are not for profit. They don't pay property taxes, right? So they are exempt. These will be deducted, and that will give you the total tax base or assessment roll, or again, total assessed values, right? So the taxing entities, they generate the annual revenue they require by levying taxes on the tax base. The tax rate, or depending on where you are in the country, millage rate, determines how much of a tax levy the tax base will receive. The tax rate for each taxing entity is calculated by dividing the amount of revenue required by the tax base. I'm going to put this into numbers in a little bit. This rate is then applied to the taxable value of each individual real property to determine its tax levy. Okay? The value assessment, guys, we already talked about it. How is it evaluated? How do you figure out how much you pay in taxes? Based on the value. Who determines the value? Tax assessors or appraisers. They determine the value of your property for tax purposes. And again, as it says, assessments practice differ from state to state. And again, in many states, assessed value, ANTAR, does not reflect the market value that an appraisal for other purposes might aim to estimate. For instance, in some areas, assessors use a sales comparison approach to assess the land value and the cost approach to value improvements. Okay, so it depends from state to state. The role of the assessor in the taxing process is limited to making a valuation and notifying the owner of the assessed value. Other tax officials determine the tax rate and the tax levy. Next, we have equalization. Okay, I'm going through real quick because in the state portion, we'll go more in detail on what applies to the state itself. This is just general tax. Equalization. What does equalization mean? What do you think equalization means? Hint, hint. What do you think equalization means? Oh, this is not discrimination, but equal rights. Okay. Carly, uniform, exactly. Fair, balanced, yes, balanced. So here's the thing. Some taxing bodies recognize that local assessments, can lead to unfairly high or low values for properties in certain areas. Therefore, the jurisdiction may establish equalization factors to level out the unevenness of valuations. For instance, if assessed values of properties in one county are consistently 10% below the average of the other counties, an equalization board may multiply each assessed value in that county by a factor of 110% to raise them to the average level of the state. Why is this necessary? Equalization factor, even though not heavily tested, the equalization factor is necessary because the state has a bunch of money that they need to distribute, right? For instance, for education, funding for education. Do you think every single county should receive the same amount, or every single municipality should receive the same amount for education? No. There are areas that are highly populated and need more assistance. So the equalization tables will help distribute money to those places that's needed the most. And usually that is reflected by property values. If it's a high income area, most likely to have higher income, right? Simple. If it's a low income area, most likely to have lower property values. So higher values or lower values. And the distribution of money is based on that, based on values. Okay, that's what the equalization is for, is to balance the distribution of monies across the board. All right? Now, Joanna, here you go. You talked about, how about if I'm not happy with the taxes? Can I do anything to reduce the taxes? Well, that's called an appeal. Okay? You can always go there and cry about it. Okay? That's what it is. You're going to go there and cry about it. I don't know if you guys, was anybody a baby before? Baby? Anybody was a baby? No? Carly says no. I didn't ask if you have it, if you were one. Like you were born and then baby and then toddler, and then, right? If you were a baby, how did you communicate? Besides Google Dada, right? How did you communicate when you needed something, when you wanted something, when you were hungry, when you were upset, when you're not happy? How did you communicate? You cried about it, right? That's what an appeal is. You appealed, right? That's what an appeal is. So, so what you have to do is you got to go to City Hall and go to the taxation body and say, hey, which like here in Newark, for instance, is a totally different building, but part of it. But you got to go there and say, hey, I'm not happy with this. My neighbor is paying $5,000 in taxes. I'm paying $10,000 in taxes, and we got the same house. It's the same layout. It's the same structure, right? And they have a pool. How does my neighbor have a pool? They pay $5,000 and I pay $10,000 with no pool, right? So that's called appealing. If you can prove, right? If you can prove that other properties around are paying less or worth less than yours, I'm sorry, worth more than yours, and you're paying too much. So that's what we're saying here. Property owners may object to the assessed value of their property, but not to the tax rate. I'll explain that in a second. So the owner usually has a certain period, and I'll tell you what it is in your state once we get there. But an owner usually has a certain period to protest after receiving the notice of assessed value. According to local law, a property owner must present evidence that the assessor made an error to review board or appeal board. Typical evidence would include market data on comparable properties that sold recently, or evidence that the neighboring properties had less appreciation or have even declined in the assessed value in comparison with yours. Okay? So, if you can prove that your property should not be paying that much, you might win. How do we prove that? By having an appraisal done for tax purposes, or by having a realtor prepare a comparable market analysis for tax purposes. So as long as you can prove that you have something solid, you don't go there and point the fingers at your neighbor, because the moment you point the finger at your neighbor, guess what's going to happen to his taxes? Well, let's decide to evaluate the block. Why not? Right? Let's see what the neighbor has. A pool? Really? It's not on the plans. How did they get the pool? It's not approved. You're going to have a very happy neighbor. Very happy neighbor. Right? That now their taxes go up, not just because your taxes are higher than theirs, but because they even have a pool. Edith says, I did a lot of crying in Newark and it didn't help. Needed some help. Did you go by yourself? Did you bring an appraisal report? Okay. You know, if you're not happy, right, with the actions of the appeal, you can always go to court. And in court, you're going to bring a professional witness, because the county officers, the assessor, is not a certified appraiser, so you can go and appeal. You bring an expert witness. If you get into, let's say, a medical malpractice claim, what would you do? You're going to go to court, right, against the doctor, and you have to bring somebody that's an expert in the subject to dispute the doctor's decision. That's why medical malpractice lawsuits are either won or lost based on another doctor or surgeon's verified opinion. Okay? Now, am I guaranteeing? Indeed, send it to Legia. There you go. Send your appeal to Legia. She'll help you. She works in Newark. So Am I guaranteeing that you'll get out of there with a win? I'll tell you right now, sometimes it's not even worth going there. That's why we do the appraisals first to figure out what your property's worth. But you have to do an appraisal not for market value, but an appraisal for tax purposes. Okay? For tax purposes. Very important. Okay? That's very different than an appraisal for market value or with the intention of selling. Just like, if you guys remember, we talked about appraisals for insurance purposes, right? For a divorce, or probate, right? There's different types of appraisal reports with different types of intentions and different types of values. All right, so if it's for tax purposes, your appraiser must know how to prepare the report for that appeal. Because later on, if you go to court, you need them to be there for you and explain how they came up with that report and that value. All right, so not all appraisers do that. So when you go for an appeal, make sure you have an appraiser that knows how to do it. All right, the other question here. If the owner wins the appeal, does it affect the entire block or just hers? Well, if you don't cry about it, what do you think? All right? If you don't cry about it, then imagine you have two babies. One cries, the other one doesn't. Well, one is satisfied, the other one isn't. Simple. Carly, can the realtor get in trouble if the appraiser was wrong? Why would you as a realtor... Wait, I'm lost. I said you can do either comps as a realtor or an appraiser. You'll get one or the other. So as realtors, we don't do appeals. She's talking as a homeowner. She wants to appeal. We don't do appeals as realtors. Don't get involved in that. I tell you right now, you already have enough headaches being a realtor. Okay, Calvin, when the West Orange was reassessed, I was under the impression they hired an appraisal company to do the assessment. So that's different. In certain areas of the country or state or municipalities or whatever, especially when there's not as much turnover, right? There's not as many sales, it's difficult to reassess, right? When there's a lot of sales, it's easier to reassess. So what townships do sometimes, or municipalities do sometimes, is every 5 years, every 10 years, every 20 years, depending on the movement, they'll bring an outside appraisal firm to reassess everybody and bring everybody to current market values. So yes, it is possible, Calvin, that happened to you. But it's not the city official. They hired an appraisal firm to do it. Okay? So that is a little different. All right, some people are exempt. There are some exemptions. One of them is homestead. Homestead is the primary residence. There are some exemptions for that. There's other exemptions like government-owned properties. They are immune from taxes if they're government-owned properties. Immune from taxes. Page 291, I mentioned properties owned by nonprofit organizations. These are exempt from taxes while they're being owned by the non-for-profit. When they're sold, that's it. You lose the benefit, so you have to pay the actual tax price. And also owner classes, like I mentioned, senior citizens, widows, disabled individuals, veterans, and so on. They have a reduction in their taxes. Okay. All right, tax district budgeting. Is the White House government owned? So, Carly, all public houses are government owned, and all government is owned by the public. So they're owned by you. They're not privately owned for your individual or personal benefit, but we the people, okay, own the government, and we the people own the White House, and we the people own City Hall. That's why whenever you ask for official papers, they have to present it to you because you are part of the people. They cannot hide any public work. Okay? No, it's true. Like for instance, if you guys, we're going to talk about the tax district right here, budgeting, the budgeting, right? If you guys think that they're using your money for something that they shouldn't, right? You're entitled to find out. It's called a CAFR report, City Annual Financial Report, and that's public. The White House has it too. They have to show you how they're using their money. Like every year, they have to switch the furniture, and so roughly anywhere between $40,000 to $120,000 that they spend on furniture because, you know, you have to. Part of their budget. There's people that don't make that much a year, and here they are changing furniture for every politician that moves in. But anyway, it's there. You want to find out? Get the city annual financial report. There's also for the county. There's also for the state. Because again, we the people are entitled to know. It's just that we the people really don't care unless it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or whatever. Once it's there, everybody's like, oh my God, this is happening. All right, cool. Once it's gone, you look for the next story. You already forgot what it was, and you never took action. Tell me that's not true. All right? Everything's available. It's just a matter of researching. Or, you know what you guys could do also? Sorry, I'm very sarcastic. You could also rely on the information that I provide you when I post on Facebook. That's more than enough. Right? Enough for you to share with your friends and be like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. Right? Without verification, which is what a lot of people do. Anyway. That's right, Bruno times. It's constructive notice, Anna says, right? Constructive notice. Yes, it's available. And once you research the CAFR report and you read it, you have actual notice. Very good. Sorry, I just have something against people sharing stuff without verifying, because there's a lot of misinformation out there, right? So always verify before you share something, because then it's like a snowball effect, and people follow. All right, or get your account suspended. One of them. Budgeting. Where were we? So how do we figure out the budgets? You guys remember taxing districts? Taxing districts like fire, education, right? Parks, so on, nursing, right? All that stuff. So all of these taxing bodies or entities or districts, they're going to come up with a value that they need as a budget for the next year, for the following year, right? And they're going to report that to the city and say, hey, this is how much we need to keep going next year. Right? Once they figure out how much the total they need, they're going to review how much money's coming in. Right? So, money we need, money coming in, what is the deficit? The deficit is the difference between what we need and the amount of money we receive. Right? So, as soon as we figure out what the deficit is, which we call shortfall, this becomes your tax levy. It's the shortfall. Now, the tax levy is derived every year since the budget requirements of revenues tally are performed for the annual cycle. So every single year your taxes change. That's why you get a brand new tax bill at the end of the year. It's not a steady rate. It's based on what we need and based on what we receive. Okay? So guess what? What you pay in taxes, it's not the full budget to run the town. It's a portion of it. Okay? That is why your taxes are all the same. You guys know that? Everybody has the same taxes. Everybody has the same taxes. You know why? Because your taxes are your tax rate. What is different is your tax bill, but the taxes are the same. The rate, for instance, is 3% for you as it is for your neighbor, as an example. It's 20% for you as it is for your neighbor. That's the taxes. It's just that your property is either worth more or worth less than your neighbor's. And that's why your tax bill is different. And if you guys remember, we talked over here about appealing. All right, let's go back. Look what it says. You're not affecting the tax rate. You're appealing the value of your property. So your taxes are the same. It's just the value of your property that needs to be disputed. Okay? So right here, tax rate. How do we figure out the tax rate? Each individual taxing body has their own tax rate, and the tax rate is determined by dividing the taxing body's budgeted amount to be collected from real estate taxes by the tax base. So, here's an example. If the taxing body, so let's say City of Newark needs $500,000 from property taxes, and City of Newark has $15 million worth of assessed value, if you guys remember. So total assessed value, right? And this right here is the budget deficit. We divide how much money we need by the total assessed value or the assessment roll, and we figure out that the answer is 0.03. This is the same as 3%, and this is your tax rate across the board. Everybody pays 3% in taxes. 3% of what? Of your property value. Okay? 3% of your property value. Are you guys good so far? Give me a thumbs up if you're good. All right, I'm trying to go as easy as I can on this one. If you have questions, put a question mark, ask me the question, and I'll explain again. Now, the tax rate, which is 0.03 or 3%, may be expressed in a number of ways depending on local practice. Some areas, mills, as dollars per hundred or as dollars per thousand. So it could be mills, dollars per hundred, or dollars per thousand. Okay? All right. Anna's asking, can you explain what a tax levy is again? So tax levy is how much they're going to charge on your property. How much are they entitled to request from your property? So what they need, did we have it here? Tax levy, tax levy, tax levy. So tax levy is what they're going to levy or against your property or require against your property. Right here, sorry. It's pretty much, let's say the city needs $10 million, let's say, to run. They collect from a lot of fees, like copies, permits, tickets, even donations, right? Grants to the city and so on. They collect $9.5 million. They are short $500,000 in order to meet the budget for the city to continue going. All right? So they're going to levy taxes based on that. The $500,000 we need, we divide that value that we need, we divide by everybody's assessed value, the total, and it gives us 3%. So the 3% is what's levied against your property. So how do we figure that out? Again, it's either based on mills, dollars per hundred, or dollars per thousand. Let me show you real quick. There's a couple of ways you can do this. If the state exam question talks about dollars per thousand and it shows you $30 per thousand, take those two zeros out. And look, it's the same as the one above, $3 per hundred. If you see the words per hundred, it's the same as percent. So $3 per hundred is 3%. Same exact thing. Every time you see per hundred, switch it to 3%. If it says $26 per hundred, switch it to 26%. That's what it is, okay? The only one that's going to be most confusing is this one, mills. Now, a mill is 1/1000 of a dollar or 0.001. That's 1 mil. Because it says 30 mills, it's 30 of these. Okay? If we keep on going, then it's 0.03. 0.03 is the same as 3%. Exactly the same thing. So if you see 0.001, that's 1 mil. If they say 30 mils or 300 mils or 26 mils, whatever, just put the 0.001 and put whatever number they gave you right underneath and keep on filling it in, 0.03. If it was 300 mils, it's 0.3. Okay? If it was 26 mils, then it would be, right, 0.26, and so on. Good? So far? Great. Okay, how are you billed? Okay, here it gets a little complex because the calculation they have on this book is based on mills only. State exam is not going to go as complicated as this. What they would do in the state exam is simply your property in certain states. So when I get to the state portion, I'll explain better mills if you're in a state. And I'm saying this in general because I teach other states as well. But if you're in a state that talks about mills or that's how you're taxed, I'll have the state portion talk about that. If you're in the state, like here, state of New Jersey, we don't use mills, we use per hundred, right? So in the state, you have the bill. Your property is worth $100,000 times the 3%, right? $3,000 is your yearly tax, okay? Or if it says $3 per 100, right? Per 100. There's a couple of ways to do this. You divide, I'm going briefly over this. We have the math chapter still. So we divide this by 100 and then multiply it by 3. Or, what I was telling you before is take the dollar sign, add the percent. It's 3%. So we go back to this. Okay? So it's simple as that. All right, right after that we have special assessment or public improvements. Special assessment or public improvement. Why public improvement? Because it's an additional tax that they charge against you or levy against your property for sidewalks, water service, or sewers. Okay? This public improvement tax, or improvement tax as it's called by itself, or special assessment as it's called, it's for stuff that's outside of the property. It's not your property improvement, it's public improvement that benefits your property. It's called a special assessment. That's all you need to remember right now. And now is where we stop for a second. Lead pipes replacement. Yep, could be. All right, so tax lien enforcement. What is a lien? Who can tell me? Lien. Hold on your property for monies owed. Stacy, judgment is an example of a lien, but what I'm asking is, what is a lien? So it's a hold or a claim on your property, money claim, great, against the property, correct. So a tax lien is a financial claim that the city has against the property, okay? So a tax lien is something that the city has financially against the property. If you don't pay, then they sell a tax certificate. So they put your property for auction. It's called a tax foreclosure or a tax sale. If you are the successful bidder, you're the one that wins, right? The bid, you get a tax sale certificate. You don't have any authorization to occupy the property or use the property. You have a certificate based on the taxes only. And you're probably like, why would I pay taxes then for somebody else? Why would I bid on it? Well, because the owner has something called a redemption period. We'll repeat all this when we get to the state portion because now it comes with dates and time frames. But there's a redemption period. That means that the owner has to pay you back. Now, the owner has to pay back, okay, the taxes plus any other charges before the sales occur, right? But if you win, so this is before the sale, if you win, ready? Okay. If you win, the taxpayer must pay the amount paid by the winning bidder at the tax sale. So let's say you paid $15,000 worth of taxes for them. They got to give you that back. Plus any charges. I zoomed in so you pay attention. Additional taxes or interest that may have accumulated over time. So if you pay taxes for somebody else, it's almost like having a savings account because you can only touch, a CD, a certificate of deposit, because you cannot do anything with it until X amount of time later. It's earning interest, and depending on the state, there's different interest values. So state of New Jersey, as an example, is 18% interest on that certificate. So you put it there, you forget it for 2 years, right? If they pay you back with the interest for whatever amount of time. If they don't, after 2 years, if they do not redeem the property after 2 years, you can start a tax foreclosure and you get a tax deed, and now he conveys the title to you. What does that mean? You pay the taxes for somebody else, and the property could become yours. Now, I'm not telling you will win right now. You'll win the property because usually there's a mortgage. So the mortgage company usually steps up and says, well, wait a minute. We have a $400,000 lien. We're not going to lose the property because you paid $15,000. So usually they would step up and pay you, or the homeowner would pay you. Like there's different ways. But the cool thing about it is that it could be a win-win-win situation for you. It's either you get paid by the owner of the house, you get paid by the lien holders, or you get the house. Pretty much those are the options, right? If you don't do things right, if you don't file things right, you could lose. Like I've heard of people that go down to City Hall to pay somebody else's taxes. It's not an auction, so you did not win the right to the property. You did not get a certificate. You just paid somebody's taxes. And for that, guys, I'll give you my bill. I'll give you my bill every single year. Pay my taxes, right? It doesn't entitle you to anything because you only get this tax certificate, right? You only get this tax certificate at the tax sale or the tax auction, okay? Hold on. Harley says, this is the squatter's right hack you were talking about? Maybe. I saw this on TikTok. What did you see on TikTok? I thought TikTok was just for dances, right? Anthony, I seen a video on Instagram about that. Today, a guy paying taxes on the house, and he would get the house or pay back. Yep. Chrissy, I didn't believe it. You can own the house completely. Yep. It's legal. They just got to pay you back. Just remember, you're on the financial side of TikTok, I'm sure. How did you break your arm? Go ahead. Right? You're doing the dance? I know. Financial side. You don't break your arm on the financial side. You never, ever heard somebody on the financial side, oh, it was so risky to sign that contract that I broke my arm. Come on. Snowboarding, uh-huh. Sure. Anyway. All right, here's a tax lien enforcement. If you don't pay taxes, there's a sale of a tax certificate, which you can buy. Then you apply for a tax deed, and that's when it transfers to you. There might be a right to redemption, or title is now yours. That's what it is. All right, it's based on state law, so guys, you have to look at whatever the state says. All right, any questions? Hey, Ria, what's up? Any questions you might have? YouTubers, Zoomers? We still got a few minutes to go because I said I was going to let you go early, but it was like a 9:29, not at 9:08. So, questions? Jaquanas just went Dora on us. We did it. Brain spinning. Oh, yeah. Please explain the 2-year part. I'll explain once we get to the state portion because it's more specific to state of New Jersey. Does the tax thing happen often in New Jersey? Oh, yeah. Every year there's a tax sale, and every municipality has one. There's always somebody that doesn't pay the taxes. And then either the municipality wins it because nobody bid enough, or somebody bids and gets the property. The dog is tired. Okay. Ligia says she got to go back to work. Ligia, you're still on my clock. You got 20 minutes to go. Just saying, you're on my clock. Oh yeah, I know. Crazy. Carly, TikTok talked about ab owners that went to jail. Ab owners? I actually own the whole keg. I don't have abs. Right? Do I go to jail because I have a keg? Carly? Oh, about. Ab means about. Okay, I just want to make sure. About. Okay. So owners that went to jail. Yes, if people don't do it right. That's why I don't like to talk too much in detail about the process. If you don't do things right, then there's something called breaking and entering. And yes, you could go to jail for not doing things right. Breaking and entering. Yep. Really? You went towards that now? Gotta speak Creole now? Okay. All right, guys, let me let you guys go de-stress a little bit. People are already talking to me in all kinds of languages. So, yeah, okay, fine. Fine. What are you guys still doing there? Good night. Thank you. Appreciate you.